on considering language varieties and language context in natural language processing and machine translation by Yliana Rodríguez and Luis Chiruzzo. So Luis is a researcher and adjunct professor at the computer science department of the Universidad de la República in Uruguay. He holds a PhD in computer science, and his main lines of work include syntactic analysis, sentiment and humor analysis, and machine translation for low resource languages, particularly building resources for Guarani and Spanish. And Yliana holds a PhD in linguistics from Leiden University in the Netherlands. She is an adjunct professor at the Center for Foreign Languages of the Faculty of Humanities and Educational Sciences of the same university. And she is interested in better understanding language context phenomena, borrowing dialectology, foreign language learning mechanisms, and Guarani's social linguistic history and present. Yliana, do you want to share your screen?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks to you, Mena, for the invite. Thanks for the presentation, the introduction, and I'm now trying to share the screen with you. Please let me know if this is working.
I can see it.
You can see it, good.
Yep.
I'm going to switch off my video after saying hello to everyone because of what Mena mentioned about not having really good internet connection. Okay, here we go. So as Mena has already mentioned, okay, we're going to be talking about our experience from here, from Universidad de la República in Uruguay. We're actually kind of neighbors, except for the fact that we have this ocean between us. We're going to be telling you our experience as like me as a linguist and Luis and his team as computational engineers on working Guarani. We will, let me, why can't I, all right. There. We'll introduce you to language contact very briefly, to Guarani, the South American indigenous language we're working with, and to natural language processing. Then we're going to go over the challenges of working with a indigenous minority South American language, which is like no exception from other cases of the world, of course. And then we'll explain what we are doing in order to tackle the challenges we have encountered. So language contact, what is it? Well, just as the expression explains, it means that two languages coming together, two or more languages coming together, or dialects even, that has occupied linguists for over a century now. We still don't have a theory of language contact, though there's been lots of research and case studies around the world. We know it's no exception that what we expect it to be like in the world is language contact to exist. We don't know of a language that has not been in contact with another one. So, of course, needless to say, the implications are many. It has implications in terms of education, in terms of language change, for sure, ethnographic implications, social implications, and what we're going to focus now is what those implications are for natural language processing and machine translation. Linguists still have not agreed on when a variety of a certain language dialect becomes a language, you know, so that's a whole dilemma also. We're going to explain how that has been a great debate in Paraguay mainly, that has considered Guarani an official language together with Spanish for a few years only. And then we have this problem of deciding which Guarani we're working with, you know. So Luis will go over that and explain all the problems in particularly in machine translation that come together when we have to say, okay, which Guarani are we working with? Or is this code mixing between Guarani and Spanish, or is it a variety of Guarani called Yopara that actually borrows lots of words from Spanish? And of course, as I've said, this actually affects natural language processing and machine translation a lot. I mean, these language contact facts really interfere with the work of engineers. So Guarani is spoken in many parts of South America today, though by the time of the Europeans' arrival to the continent, it was spoken, it was a lingua franca together with Quechua, another indigenous language. It is said that Guarani was spoken from where we are, from Uruguay to both coasts, from Chile, the Pacific Ocean, to the Atlantic Ocean, and to the Amazonian. So even though its use has been reduced geographically, it is still alive, and it's used both by indigenous people and non-indigenous people. And as you can see there, Paraguay is just above us. The smaller country below is Uruguay, and Paraguay is there locked up between Bolivia, Argentina, and Brazil. So these are some pictures of Paraguay, just to help you imagine, travel there with us for some minutes. It's a beautiful country, very much, well, it's very humid, it's usually hot, and you really feel it in a jungle, especially if you don't come from a country like that. It's got big cities, and that the picture on the bottom right corner is important for today's presentation, because those are the remains of the Jesuits. Those are the missionaries that arrived with the Spaniards 5 centuries ago. Well, actually, they arrived in that area in the 1600s, and they were the first ones to write Guarani, to reduce it to an orthography and start producing grammars, and that's where the basic facts about grammars and dictionaries have, from those times, from the times of the conquest to today. The last grammar was published, I think, back in well, I think this year a grammar was published, but still a dictionary of Guarani to Guarani is on work right now. So still, even though we're talking about centuries of dictionaries being worked on and grammars, still it's a language that we can state is under-researched, and it's widely spoken. It's one of the most studied South American languages, but personally, I still believe it's under-researched. There's so much to be done still. And from the technological perspective, not surprisingly, it hasn't received much attention. So, using the term minority is confusing sometimes, because why is it a minority language if it's not endangered, right? As I'm saying, many people use it. It cannot be a minority in terms of the number of people using it, but it is a minority language when we think about the little amount of literature written in Guarani, for instance. And down there, put some pictures to illustrate that we shouldn't associate Guarani with indigenous people only, but to different types of people. I mean, Guarani is everywhere, particularly in Paraguay. I'm now constraining the talk to the situation of this country, but I insist, Guarani is not just spoken in that country. And together with Spanish, as I said before, it's an official language. However, and this won't surprise you, it doesn't enjoy the same status as Spanish, right? It's the Paraguayan people are working towards that, and not surprisingly, the coexistence of Spanish and Guarani speakers resulted in language change, particularly in new varieties, in code mixing, language mixing, and we know that started back in the 1600s because of the Jesuits' notes, these missionaries I was mentioning before, Spanish missionaries. All right, so these are the challenges we're dealing with right now. So first we have lack of data to build a corpus, a strong corpus. We have been looking, actually Luis and Santiago have made huge efforts to find a parallel corpus that is Guarani Spanish corpus, but there isn't much. So that's an argument in favor of saying that Guarani is a minority language in terms of the written output. And that is a big challenge for anything that has to do with NLP, right? Then we have this phenomenon of Guarani meeting Spanish and a new language, in my opinion, but this is a whole debate, has emerged, which is called Yopara, which sounds like a mixture of Guarani and Spanish, but it's clear that its structure is still Guarani, though it has lots of Spanish interference, especially for objects and ideas that appeared with the Europeans' arrival. And then there's the problem of spelling. So even though the Jesuits started working on an alphabet, of course, resorting to the Latin alphabet, as it is the case with indigenous languages almost everywhere, that they are reduced to writing by means of the Latin alphabet. Even though this work has been started centuries ago, the official alphabet was only established in 2018, right? So that again is, we have other issues that we're going to explain when it comes to spelling. So regarding the lack of data, when searching inside the country's domain, the rule-based Guarani detected text is very, very scarce. And that kind of data is the one that it's needed, and Luis is the expert here for, he'll go into that for building a good corpus so that machine translation can work, so that the rules can be learned. Then we have this situation of the Yopara language, this variety of Guarani or language, in my opinion, that has emerged as a result of Spanish Guarani contact. And it's very hard to tell when someone is code switching between Spanish and Guarani, because bilingualism is the norm in Paraguay, right? But then there's this phenomenon known by all of us that, I mean, you can be using a certain language and then use loan words from a different language, and it's hard to tell when someone is doing this or code switching or using this Yopara variety when it comes to the situation in Paraguay with Guarani. And well, the alphabet that was approved by the Guarani Language Academy is the one you see in the lower right corner. As you can imagine, well, not everybody is using the alphabet as the academy would like to. Then there's the problem of whether your keyboard it has all those options. Especially, I have been told by Santiago Góngora, one of our team members, that when you want to display the keyboard in a telephone, not necessarily you have the options, or you don't have the time to go and use all the right letters. There's a big discussion also in Paraguay when it comes to education, because schools are bilingual. So this also affects NLP and machine translation. Now, Luis will continue presenting.
Okay,
so,
thank you. I'll pick up from here. All right. Can you stop sharing?
I am trying to. Here. All right.
Okay, I'll share now. Okay, in my share options, there's no option for full screen. Is that correct?
No, I think that should work.
Okay, maybe I should get out and get in again, because now it's not showing the option for sharing all the screen. Not even a window. It just says sharing the whiteboard, which is not enough.
Oh no, that's not enough.
No. Okay, I'll try leaving and entering again. Just a minute.
Meno, if it's okay with you, I can use this time to reply to Janet Watson, who's curious about the title I used in one of the slides. It appeared somewhere there, the phrase, the unbearable lightness of the orthography. And that it's actually a phrase we have borrowed from Hedy Penner, one of the experts when it comes to Guarani and its reality in Paraguay. And she wrote this wonderful paper, I'm more than willing to share with you, of course, about like she really goes. Okay. Luis, hi, you're back. I'm replying while you get to do that. Right. I'm replying a question from the chat. So she explains how hard it is to agree on an alphabet, and she's very critical towards the government. I shouldn't say the government, maybe the Academy of Letters of Guarani, because they have approved this alphabet and they expect everyone to use that alphabet, but people are not really following the new alphabet. You know, generally societies and when peoples are stronger than those that rule, and especially when it comes to language. So it's unbearable because she's being a little bit, maybe she's using that American humor there, because it's like impossible to decide to agree. And Luis will give you an example of this on how to spell certain words, and some of them are as simple as how to spell the word "nita'i," which is child. So it's I would say it's a little bit chaotic. So it's really hard, not just for natural language processing tasks, but also for teachers. So it's really difficult for teachers to using this alphabet, but still in real life, people are not necessarily, I shouldn't say respect, but constraining to it. Now I think Luis is ready to present,
Yes.
right? Cool.
Thank you. Okay, so I will start by rolling back a few steps and start discussing, first of all, why we are working on this and what's like the vision here. And the vision is for building NLP tools for Guarani. And when we started this idea like a few years ago, there was absolutely nothing. I mean, we couldn't find any source of digital resources for working on NLP for Guarani. And well, we decided to start to try and build some. The problem is that I didn't speak any Guarani, so first of all, I had to learn some. And then, well, it was very difficult to find really digital resources, and that is one of the problems this project has. So first of all, what are we trying to make? So what is natural language processing and what is it good for? I'm going to briefly explain that. Probably some of you already know some of the things, but just to summarize it. So natural language processing is the set of methods and techniques that are intended to make the computers so they can understand and generate human language. So we mean natural language by human language as opposition in opposition to formal languages such as math or programming languages, which are formally constructed, so they are not ambiguous. And on the other hand, human language is ambiguous and it's hard to process. So some examples of applications that use natural language processing are, for example, web search when you Google for something, speech recognition, also machine translation, which is the one we are talking about mainly in this presentation, and also question answering. And these are probably applications you have used at some point. But also there are other types of tasks that are more close to the linguistic form of words that are of words and sentences that are also part of natural language processing. For example, part of speech tagging is a task that takes a sentence like John eats an apple, and it tags it with the corresponding parts of speech. This is a noun, this is a verb, this is a determiner, this is a noun. And parsing, for example, is taking this form, this sentence form, and creating a parse tree, a syntactic parse tree of that sentence. Those are like more core tasks, like tasks that we make them in order to make other tools better. So the application I want to talk to you about is about machine translation, which has had an enormous boost in performance in the latest years. But generally, that boost in performance works well for pairs of languages that are high resourced. For example, English and Spanish. There's a lot of information, a lot of parallel data in English and Spanish. So the tools for building machine translation systems get better and better. But it's not the case for low resource languages like Guarani and other indigenous languages in Latin America and also elsewhere in the world. So historically, machine translation has passed through certain steps. Initially, there were mainly rule-based approaches. I'm going to give you a brief example of these. Then in the 90s, the statistical approaches, statistical models took like the field by storm, and everything started to become statistical. And in order to do this, you needed a lot of data. And nowadays, the models that work the best are the neural models. And in order to work with this, you need even more data. So having a lot of data I mean, don't having data is not an option nowadays. Okay, so a brief example of what I mean by rule-based. In the early days of machine translation, you could have a system that that work like this. For example, you had a set of examples like this. I don't know if you know Spanish, but in the left side there's Spanish, and in the right side there's Guarani. And this is in fact an example we put as an exercise in some of the NLP courses we give here in the university. So the Spanish sentence says there is a mouse between those elephants, and the Guarani sentence says my Guarani is not very good, but it's something like umi, elefante, mbutepe, oi, petei, anguja. Okay, so this example is made more complex on purpose, because in fact you wouldn't use exactly this ordering of words in Guarani, but it is possible. So in this case, you have a Spanish sentence with a Spanish syntactic tree, and you have a Guarani sentence with a Guarani syntactic tree. So the point in a rule-based system is trying to create a set of rules that that can transform one of the trees into the other. So in this case, you should say, well, if I have in the Spanish side, you have a sentence can be rewritten as a verb phrase and a prepositional phrase. So in Guarani, you should switch it to sentence, prepositional phrase, verb phrase. So if we focus in the prepositional phrase, in the left, in Spanish, you could say that a prepositional phrase is a preposition followed by a noun phrase. In the case of Guarani, that is generally switched, and you, instead of prepositions, you use postpositions. So you say a postpositional phrase is a noun phrase followed by a postposition. So in this case, the preposition entre, which is between in English, would be changed to mbutepe in Guarani, which is a postposition. And so on and so on. You have many examples of these with many trees, and you start analyzing these trees and try to write rules that transform one tree into the other. This approach was like the first machine translation system tried to use this, and so they needed a parser, an automatic parser that could turn a sentence into a syntactic tree, then a set of rules that transform that tree into a tree in the target language, and then what you call a generator that takes a syntactic tree and generates the target language, the sentence in the target language. These approaches were good at up to some point, because from one point and beyond that, it becomes like very complex to write all these rules and to keep track of all these rules, and the rules start interacting with each other in unexpected ways. So it's very difficult to do it consistently. So nowadays, those approaches are generally not used anymore, and generally what we do is just to collect a lot of data, a lot of text, and create gigantic parallel corpora, which is a collection of data that is in both languages, and you use mathematical models in order to predict how to translate one into the other. So in order to do that, you need a performance metric. You need a way to tell how good your translation is. And we can say that these mathematical models, what they do is that they try to learn how to solve a task. They try to learn how to do translation automatically. Okay. So in the case of machine translation in Guarani to Spanish, what we need is like a huge parallel corpus of Guarani Spanish. And one important thing is it has to be aligned. It means that we have to know which sentence corresponds to other sentence, which Guarani sentence corresponds to a Spanish sentence. And that's one of the problems that, well, Yliana hinted at them, and I'm going to show some more data about that. The mathematical models that we used nowadays are generally neural networks, which are like a family of mathematical functions that can model many things. The performance metrics, I'm not going to go into the details, but we generally use two performance metrics that are called BLUE and CHAR-F. And these are like a measure of how much a candidate sentence produced by a system is similar to an expected sentence. I mean, I have a set of of reference sentences for example, in Guarani, and I have a way of saying, well, this candidate sentence from a machine translation system, how well does it capture the information of the reference sentence? And well, of course, in order for the system to learn a task, we need really a very large volume of data. And in the case of Guarani and Spanish, well, we don't have that much information. So we are doing what we can. Okay, so what about our corpus? Yliana said something about this. We tried to, I mean, we had one problem, that is we tried to crawl the web for all the content in Guarani and Spanish that was possible to find. And mainly we tried to crawl the .py websites, which is the Paraguayan root. And we couldn't find, even in those websites, we couldn't find much information in Guarani. I mean, there were a lot of pages in Spanish, but too few in Guarani. So that is something that has also been seen for other minority languages in other contexts as well. For example, in I think it was in Norway that they were trying to build a corpus for minority languages, and they found the same thing, that the Norwegian was like the main. And now I don't remember if it was Norway or Finland, but there was one main language in the country, and the minority languages were very difficult to find in the web, even for that country. And well, the same happens in Paraguay. In Paraguay, there are many sites in Spanish and very few in Guarani. But the the few we could find, we collected them. We collected pages that were linked in both languages, or articles that we noticed that contained both languages, and we manually analyzed them. We collected some news sites, some blogs. Then we also started collaborating with other researchers that were trying to make the same things that we wanted to do. And well, they had come up with other solutions, for example, trying to translate, like crowdsourcing a translation of some Wikipedia articles. And also there is a corpus of natural language understanding that we paid a translator, a human translator, to translate it like as naturally as possible. And also we used a collection of digitized books, but not too many. So here's an overview of the corpus. Our corpus has in total around 30,000 sentences, and these are like more or less the percentages. There is like one very big source of text, that is ABC. It's a newspaper in Paraguay that regularly publishes information both in Guarani and Spanish. And well, so half of the corpus more or less is from that site. And there's another big chunk of the corpus that is SPL, that is another news site, but this one is particularly about the Paraguayan linguistics, how do you say it? Paraguayan Linguistic Academy?
Policies, linguistic, yeah, it's
yeah.
linguistic
policy. It's not the academy, right? It's like this secretary.
Yeah, it's like an institution.
Yeah, the institution for enforcing linguistic policies. Okay,
exactly, so within the Ministry of Education. Yeah, they worried about education mainly.
Yeah, so their news were mainly about like self-referential about Guarani language. These were the news sites I was referring to. Then we have these three sources that are in fact digitized books, and Hackathon and ANLP are this was a crowdsourced translation of Wikipedia articles, and ANLP is a manually translated version of a corpus for natural language understanding. And the last one is blogs. Blogs is also one of, I mean, it was a collection of blogs and folk tales we found that we could find that both the Guarani and the Spanish version were published together, so we could extract the information from that. But most of this information, I mean, most of the corpus, it comes from two websites that regularly publish news. But one thing we found is that the difference, digamos, let's say there's a difference between the types of varieties of Guarani they are using in their content. So, okay, what happened here? Sorry, I don't know why it stopped sharing. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So about the varieties, we noticed that there were like different ways of expressing things in Guarani in the corpus, in the different sources. So we, as we are not native speakers of Guarani, we asked 3 native speakers of Guarani to try to analyze at least a sample of each of the sets, of each of the subsets, and try to understand what varieties were present there. And well, we didn't tell them to explicitly to write that the varieties were Jopara or Jehea or Guarani or Standard Guarani or whatever. We let them come up with the labels they wanted. And in general, they agreed on these 3 labels, mainly on these 3 labels, Jopara, Jehea, and there was like some mismatch in the Guarani labels, some of them called Guarani, some called academic Guarani, some called standard Guarani. But well, we renamed that all to just Guarani. And so you can more or less see here the different mixtures of the varieties you can find in each source. In most of the subsets, the predominant variety is the standard or pure Guarani, but there's one, in fact, the largest subset, which is ABC. The predominant variant is Jopara, and Jopara is like uses a lot of mixture between Spanish and Guarani, and I'm going to show some examples of this. And this source ABC is, as we saw in the previous slide, is the biggest one. So that means the mixture contains a lot more of Jopara than it should have if we only took paid attention to the other sources. So here are some examples of what I mean by the different varieties. You can say the first one is like pure Guarani. There are no interferences with Spanish at all. I mean, all the words are in pure Guarani. The second one, in fact, contains, I think I have, okay, I had some highlights here. Okay, the second one contains, it says, afara o renunciata coero, and it means that afara will quit tomorrow, and there is one loan word here that is o renunciata, contains the word renuncia, which is to quit in Spanish. So in this case, it is a loan word that is adapted to Guarani. So in this case, the annotators call this variant JGA. And in the third case, it's more, the mixture is more evident. It says, Oyuhuma 52, allanamiento, Argentina, Gotio, Ja, 21, detenido, etc. And here the words are completely in Spanish. Allanamiento and detenido. Here, munición, which is ammunition, and fusil, which is a kind of gun. All these are words that are in Spanish directly. They are not even transformed. And so the annotators tended to say that this one was Jopara, that it was the mixture. So the first one should be like pure Guarani, and the second one should be Jehea, and the third one should be Jopara. Okay, so one more thing. I told you that the parallel corpus needed to be aligned. That means in order for the machine translation models to learn how to translate things, at least they have to know which sentence corresponds to each other. And there was a problem. That is, in many cases, the 2 documents we had, for example, we had a piece of news. The 2 documents did not have exactly the same content. In general, the Spanish version had more information, more content than the Guarani version. So we needed a way to automatically try to align these sentences in a way that made sense. So here we have an example of a piece of news, a news article that in Guarani it has only 4 sentences, and in Spanish it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences. And there is a problem there because we don't know. I mean, a human reading the article can more or less tell which sentences are how the sentences align to each other. But an automated system has like really a hard time trying to do that. So we created a heuristic that tries to use some information from the text in order to try to align the sentences. And in order to do that, we try to use the fact that there, as most of the texts were in Yopara, and Yopara uses a lot of loan words from Spanish, we try to use that fact in order to guide our heuristic process. So we started by trying to analyze words and phrases that are similarly written in one place and the other. For example, here you have a proper name, Itagua, which is written almost exactly the same in both sentences. Congreso is also written the same. In the other one, there are some words that are the same. For example, in this case, they're the same, vicio and política and itagüeño. In the other one, you have a number. You have some noun phrases that are written exactly the same. And in the bottom one, also, there are some of them. So you start by analyzing which words or spans of text are present in one place and the other. And then you try to align the words, the sentences that have the most words aligned between them. So in this case, the first goes with the first, the second goes with the second, the third goes with the third, but the fourth one goes with the fifth Spanish sentence, and the other two are discarded because they don't align to anything. All right, so as you can imagine, this alignment process, as it is an automatic process that we run through all the corpus, could work fine on some cases, but could like have some errors or introduce some errors on other cases. So in order to try to gauge how much or how good was this alignment process, we asked the same annotators to annotate how good was the translation pair we gave them. We gave them the same samples they annotated for variety, and we asked them, well, how good is the alignment? So they found that there were some differences between sources, but in general, most of the sentences had a perfect match, which is the green color. Some of the sentences had it was a good match, but there was more information on the Spanish side. That was very common. Very few sentences had more information on the Guarani side. That's it, the yellow color. And there were a few, like a considerable number, but not too many, that were a complete mismatch. These red bars here, every source has at least some mismatch. All right. So finally, I wanted to tell you about some machine translation experiments. Okay, there was also one other challenge we faced here, and I didn't put a slide on how we tackled it because we haven't tackled it yet, which is about the orthography and the variants in orthography that are there. For example, using or not using the tilde for the words. You know, Yliana told you that there was a word which is I think it's written like this, mitai, or maybe the tilde is here. Okay, not even I can write it correctly. Maybe it's like this.
Yeah, it's like that.
Okay, so this one has a tilde on top of the A, and also a puso, which is like a special character that is present in the alphabet, in the Guarani alphabet. Okay, so people don't generally have this mark in the keyboard, so they sometimes just don't write it, and sometimes they forget or they don't care about the puso and they just don't write it, and it could go like this, or it could go with the tilde and without the puso, or with both markers, or whatever. There are like many variants, many ways you can write mitai. And there is a problem because it's the same word according to the language. It should be, according to the speakers, it should be the same word, but it's written in 4 different ways. So for automatic systems, that's a problem because the system cannot tell apart if it's the same word or not. So we haven't found yet a solution. There could be some like orthographic correction models that could help in that, but we haven't explored them yet. But what I wanted to talk to you about is some experiments on machine translation we did with this corpus, with the corpus I just told you, which is this one. We used this corpus and also the Bible. This corpus, I think I didn't mention it, is always, it's all of modern Paraguayan Guarani content. So we didn't consider the Bible in this case because the Bible has a completely different register and the words are like full of archaisms and things. So we didn't consider it part of the corpus, but we did some machine translation experiments using the Bible, which is a text that is used in many machine translation systems because it's large and there are translations of it in many languages. Okay, so here I wanted to tell you about some of our experiments. We did experiments with a neural machine translation model in both directions, trying to translate from Guarani to Spanish and from Spanish to Guarani. And here are the 2 metrics I mentioned before, which are char-f and BLEU. BLEU is calculated at word level and char-f is calculated at letter level, at character level, and that's why they are generally different, but generally char-f is higher than BLEU. So this is like the global metric. It means for the whole corpus how good were our systems, and this is separated by each subset, because as we know, each subset contains different combinations of varieties and different complexities. It is good to know how the systems behave on each subset differently. Okay, so our best system in the case in the direction Guarani to Spanish has like 33 char-f metric and 19.98 BLEU, and our best system in the direction Spanish to Guarani has 35 char-f and 20.77 BLEU. These numbers might not mean much to you. BLEU and char-f are complex metrics that don't have really human explainability, but you can use them to compare to other systems. So after we made this work, like a month afterwards, Google Translate created for the first time, released their model for Guarani, and well, Google is like a giant, and so it's very difficult to compete with the kind of resources they have. They can crawl the web and detect many sites and pages that we couldn't find, and so they really have a much bigger corpus. And they made a model, and we calculated their scores, and I don't have them here, but I remember this one because this score in this case we won. I mean, we had a better performance. In the case of Google Translate, it was I think it was 18.72, so we are 2 points above it. Sorry?
BLEU is in the lexical level, right, Luis?
Yeah,
so
BLEU is in the lexical level, translating. I mean, it's considering exact words and not characters. But on the other cases, in the direction Guarani to Spanish, Google model was far better, and in char-f for the Spanish Guarani, it was also far better. But at least we were happy that we could have one of the metrics we could win in that. So far, I think Google has a lot of resources, so they are going to improve their model. Now that they are working on it, they're going to improve very fast. Okay, so that's it. We wanted to introduce, I mean, we already introduced ourselves, but we wanted to talk also about Santiago, which is part of our team. And also there are many other collaborators that have helped us with this. Some are in Paraguay and some other are Paraguayan but are in other parts of the world, like Gustavo is in Brazil, Aldo is in the United States, and Marvin is in Spain. And Yliana, do you want to mention anyone else?
No. I mean, we do have many people that we write an email and ask questions. We haven't co-authored papers with them yet, but Dioniso
It's a matter of
Freitas
time.
from the Academy from the Academy of Letters of Guarani, he has helped us a lot with questions, and I would also, apart from thanking everyone for your attention, I would say that all of us are more than happy to collaborate with other people working in the same research projects, and that you can email us and get in touch. So don't hesitate to write to us if you're interested in our work.
Great, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation. I see there are a few questions in the chat. Becky asks, is there much Guarani used on any government websites, or are they just in Spanish?
Okay, so officially there is a law that says that Paraguay is a bilingual country, and both languages should have the same level of attention, and the laws should be in both languages, and the constitution should be in both languages. But so far, I think it's not official. There are other contexts in which the translation is systematic. I think in the European Union, the European Parliament systematically translates all the discussions of the Parliament into many languages. I think not all of the European languages, but many. So that is a natural way of creating a parallel corpus, and generally that is where that happens. It's very nice because you have a naturally occurring parallel corpus. In the case of Paraguay, I think it's not the case. I mean, there are some translations, but it's not systematic. So I don't think we can build a corpus for that. I don't know if the question was pointing in that direction.
Becky, does that answer your question? Yep, wonderful. So Janet also asks, how much is Guarani taught in schools?
Well, it's part of the curriculum for quite a long time now. Well, not that much, but more than 10 years. The problem, funny enough, is that what the Guarani that is being taught is what Luis has been referring to as pure Guarani or academic Guarani. And the Guarani people actually use at home, in the streets, everywhere else is Yopara, or in other cases, Yehea. But in my experience doing fieldwork there, it's what you listen to is Yopara. It's this mixture of Guarani and Spanish that some linguists say it's code switching, other ones say it's code mixing. Some say it's a variety. Some people like myself consider it's the new Guarani. It's the Guarani that is alive in Paraguay in particular. So there's a huge debate in educational terms about what should be done, because you have the purists insisting that the pure Guarani, the Guarani of their ancestors should be the one taught, but then students don't feel at ease with that, and then they go home and they tell their parents that they are not speaking proper Guarani. So it's by making Guarani an official language, they gave Guarani a better status, definitely, but in reality, the Guarani that is alive, that has survived so many centuries in, I insist, Paraguay, is not really the one teachers are using.
Okay, wonderful, thanks. I think there are some other countries that have similar issues. Becky also has a comment. Becky, you can also just open your mic and mention that yourself. I mean, I'm quite happy to read it aloud. Becky?
I'm reading what Becky wrote, and I agree. She's saying that, yeah, that, well, I bet you can all read the chat. And yeah, giving a language an official recognition does not translate to giving the language the space and the rights it deserves. And so I agree with both Becky and Menno in that this situation we have been describing to you is no exception, just like language contact is no exception, right? So yes, this case is replicated in many places around the planet.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Friedel mentions an article about restoring diacritics in texts. So I know that there was some work, but he found a relevant article there. So that might be something for you
that would be useful for this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That would be useful for these differences in the way of writing words, for example, mitai. And yeah, we have to look into that. I'll check this article.
Wonderful.
Check
Thanks.
this paper out. Thank you.
Yeah, and there are similar situations in the Eastern Cape in South Africa with different varieties, definitely. I'm not sure if there are any more questions. I mean, I have a few more questions, but we're also running out of time. And I realize if people need to leave, then look, I can't keep you here anyway. I was actually wondering about some of the more technical aspects. So you crawled the web searching for Guarani websites. So how do you recognize them? Do you have a set of words that need to occur, or how did you recognize these websites?
Yes, as we started with zero corpus, then we didn't have a way to train a language model to detect if something is warning. So we started by saying, well, these are some usual words that should appear. And we did that for the web, and we did that for tweets. And the tweets are, well, I didn't mention the tweet part because the tweet part was not parallel, but they are like a whole another world, and they are much more complex because the mixture of languages there is wild. But well, let's stick to web pages for now. Okay, yes, we try to detect using some words. We also, after we collected some web pages in Guarani, we created a language identifier that could try to tell apart between Spanish and Guarani. The language identifiers that existed, we tried them, that existed at the time we tried them, and they didn't work at all. So we have to make a new one, and it worked for our purposes, but we finally discovered that the point was that there was not much Guarani content in the pages anyway. And the problem is we wanted parallel text. We didn't want monolingual text. We weren't trying to collect monolingual text. If we had been searching for monolingual text, maybe we could have extracted some more, but we didn't make the experiment.
Okay, great, thanks. Just one more question. Unless other people still have questions, I see Janet is thanking you for an interesting work. I was actually wondering, at some point you mentioned the kind of mixing of languages versus code switching, and you didn't really know how to deal with that. So in a way, if I understand it correctly, you essentially kind of ignored that, right? It's if you can identify this a piece of text as Guarani, you keep it like that, right? Or did you still check the amount of, say, Spanish words in the text and how much that might influence things?
So we haven't changed anything so far. We just keep the Guarani sentences that have a lot of Spanish interference as they are. We haven't changed anything. And only in some cases where there was a sentence, for example, that says, I don't know, someone said, and then there was a huge phrase, and that phrase was not translated. I mean, in the Guarani section, they only said someone says in Guarani, and the sentence was in Spanish. In that cases, we removed the sentence because it made no sense. It was like a reported speech where they didn't add anything to the Guarani part. They just copied the Spanish sentence. Those ones we removed, but the rest of the interferences that were like noun phrases or things like that, we kept them. And we are now working on trying to automatically detect portions of the sentences that are in Spanish and portions that are in Guarani, in order to come up with a better model for the code switching or the code mixing that is happening there.
Okay, wonderful. I think that sounds very cool. So Janet has another comment. Working on modern South Arabian, we find great difficulty in establishing lines between language varieties, especially where communities are adjacent to each other. Now, I think that's a very similar situation to what you have here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I think
it's language contact phenomena everywhere, and that's the beginning of this whole problem that it's unfair to call problem, because it's a reflection of us human beings, right? Mingling and meeting and changing. But I think that this is important also to try to build theory, that as we started this colloquium, I mentioned that there's no theory for language contact yet, but I think computational work on linguistics, bearing in mind sociolinguistics, should help us, better understand how our languages coexist, languages and dialects, varieties, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, no, that's right. And so Janet says it reflects reality, and I completely agree. I mean, this is how we use language. Yeah, and most humans around the globe are multilingual. That's true as well. So I think in natural language processing, we've mostly focused on just one language because that's hard enough already. But perhaps by making the choice, we might have made it harder for ourselves, because that's not often not the way we use language. Really interesting. Are there any more questions? Otherwise, I think we want to stop as well. Do you have any last questions? Okay, I don't. Okay, there are not a lot of questions. So there, Benson says there are basic models for language evolution and death, but not too accurate. I agree. So there are quite interesting models there, but I think that's a little bit different from the language context. But yeah, that will be interesting to look at further. How to get the recording? You can find it on the Cellular website. Once I find the time to actually download and handle all of these, let me just quickly get the link. I'll put that in the chat as well. So the previous recordings can also be found there. Let me see, any more questions? People thanking. Yeah, I really enjoyed this presentation as well. I think like most other people here. So thank you very much. I think it's time to stop here. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, Maynard. Thank everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.